There are encounters that seem to defy logic, crossings of paths that could not possibly be mere products of chance, as if an invisible force orchestrated every detail, guiding two destinies to recognize each other. It is in that subtle space between the visible and the hidden that signs begin to appear. Repeated coincidences, dreams that anticipate meetings, intuitions that refuse to be silenced. These signs are not mere illusions. They are invitations to perceive the invisible web that connects kindred souls. When the universe moves to unite two people, it speaks through symbols, gestures, and events that escape rational control. Recognizing these signs is opening yourself to a deeper path of self-knowledge and true connection. If you believe that nothing happens by accident and that certain connections are inevitable, write in the comments, "I recognize the signs of the universe." From Carl Jung's perspective, meaningful encounters are not reducible to mere coincidences. They may be manifestations of synchronicity, the meaningful coincidence between external events and internal states of the psyche. When two people meet in an apparently improbable yet profoundly significant way, something deeper may be at work. The convergence between the individual unconscious and the collective unconscious, producing signs that indicate the importance of that connection. These signs can manifest as projections, when unacknowledged aspects of ourselves are perceived in the other, creating an intense sense of familiarity or magnetism. At the same time, the meeting can activate the shadow, revealing hidden parts of the personality that must be integrated for the relationship to flourish in a healthy way. True connection is not sustained by attraction alone. It requires the process of individuation, in which each person becomes conscious of who they truly are, avoiding the trap of using the relationship as an escape from their own inner issues. Another fundamental aspect is the integration of opposite poles, the animus and the anima, representations of the masculine and feminine present in every human being. When we meet someone who awakens these latent aspects, we may feel a sense of completeness. But, according to Jung, that completeness does not come from the other, but from the awakening they trigger within us. Thus, when the universe seems to want to unite two people, it is not merely about predestined romance, but a calling for both to advance on the path of self-knowledge. Recognizing and interpreting the signs is, in truth, recognizing yourself in the mirror of the relationship, allowing the encounter to become a catalyst for personal transformation. When speaking of signs from the universe, it is easy to think of fortunate coincidences or small curious events that catch our attention. However, in the light of Jungian psychology, these signs can be understood as symbolic manifestations that meaningfully connect the external world to the internal experience. Jung called this convergent synchronicity, a phenomenon in which two events coincide in a non-causal way, yet carry deep meaning for the person experiencing them. Thus, when someone repeatedly encounters the same word, number, or image at crucial moments, it is as if reality were sending encrypted messages that speak directly to the soul. These signs do not operate within linear logic. On the contrary, they follow the language of the unconscious, which communicates through symbols, metaphors, and archetypal images. Recurring dreams involving a specific person, seemingly impossible meetings, and even sudden sensations of déjà vu can be expressions of this symbolic language. They are not deterministic predictions, but invitations to perceive life as part of a broader, interconnected narrative. It is important to understand that not every curious event is a sign. In the Jungian view, a true sign carries emotional resonance and awakens something within, whether joy, restlessness, or a sense of destiny. It provokes reflection, leading the person to question the meaning of what they are experiencing. By noticing these patterns, one gains the opportunity to look inward and recognize forgotten or undeveloped aspects of oneself. The symbolic language of signs also appears in archetypes, universal patterns that shape the human imagination. When someone evokes intense emotions in us from the very first contact, it is often because a specific archetype has been activated, such as the lover, the hero, or the soulmate. This activation is not purely romantic. It serves the purpose of revealing internal needs that may not have been conscious before. To interpret these signs, it is essential to abandon the posture of a mere passive observer and become an active participant. This means reflecting on your feelings in the face of each remarkable event, noting recurring patterns and paying attention to your dreams, as the unconscious often uses the dream state to reinforce or clarify a message. When the outer and inner worlds seem to be in dialogue, life gains a richer symbolic texture, and each sign becomes a piece of a mosaic pointing toward the direction of your personal journey. From this perspective, when two people begin to cross paths in a meaningful way, the signs may intensify. There may be repeated encounters, conversations revealing extraordinary coincidences, or even unusual circumstances that bring the two together at precise moments. For Jung, this intertwining is not mere chance. It is the manifestation of a shared field of meaning in which the individual psyche and the collective unconscious interact to create opportunities for growth. Recognizing this symbolic language does not mean living in constant expectation of daily miracles, but rather developing sensitivity to perceive how the world responds to our inner states. It is an exercise in listening, where the noise of haste and distraction gives way to refined attention. When this happens, signs stop being random noise and begin to be understood as part of a profound conversation with life itself. This understanding creates space for encounters to take on broader meaning. Instead of being seen merely as romance or friendship, they become bridges to access inner dimensions that, without that bond, might have remained dormant. The signs, therefore, are not mathematical proof that something must happen, but symbolic invitations to investigate what the heart and psyche are asking for in that moment. In interpreting the symbolic language of signs, the goal is not to control destiny, but to understand that each meaningful event is an opportunity to align the inner and outer worlds. It is a call to walk with greater awareness, where each revealing coincidence becomes a reminder that life sometimes speaks in code, and it is up to us to learn how to decipher it. In Carl Jung's analytical psychology, the shadow is the set of personality aspects that remain hidden or repressed, often because they do not fit the conscious image we have of ourselves. These contents do not disappear. Instead, they manifest in subtle ways, often through other people. This is where projections come into play, the mechanism by which we attribute to others qualities, feelings, or intentions that actually belong to us. In meaningful encounters, especially those that seem destined or marked by strong signs, the shadow and projections can intensify. The feeling of immediate familiarity or inexplicable magnetism often arises from the unconscious recognition of parts of ourselves reflected in the other. This identification can generate both fascination and discomfort, as what attracts us is also what challenges us to grow. For example, someone who sees themselves as always rational and controlled may feel irresistibly drawn to a spontaneous, emotional person. At first, this attraction might be interpreted as natural chemistry or a sign from the universe. However, in Jungian terms, it is a call to integrate that spontaneity within oneself, balancing an excess of rationality. The encounter, therefore, does not serve only to satisfy an emotional desire, but to expand consciousness and include aspects once rejected. The shadow can also manifest in more challenging ways, bringing insecurities, jealousy, or behaviors we thought we did not possess to the surface. When this happens, it is common to blame the other, believing they brought out the worst in us. In truth, the relationship has merely revealed what already existed in the unconscious. Recognizing this is essential to avoid turning the relationship into a battlefield, and instead making it a space for self-knowledge. Projections, in turn, act like lenses that distort our perception. We may idealize someone, attributing exaggerated virtues to them, or demonize them, seeing only flaws. Both forms of projection distance us from the other's reality, keeping us trapped in an internal reflection. The conscious work in this case is to notice when we are projecting and to pull that energy back inward, investigating the origins of these feelings. In meaningful encounters, there is a paradox. The same force that attracts us can generate conflict. This paradox is not a sign that the bond is false, but that it is transformative. Shadow integration occurs precisely when we can remain in the relationship, whether romantic, familial, or a friendship, while examining our own reactions. It is not about accepting harmful behavior from the other, but about using each trigger as a clue to understand ourselves better. Jung believed that such encounters are unique opportunities for individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are. The relationship acts as a living mirror, reflecting areas that need work. This is why the universe's signs that lead us to cross paths with certain people may have a deeper function than simply uniting hearts. They call the psyche to dive into territories that might otherwise never be explored. The risk, when there is no awareness of the shadow and projections, is to mistake emotional intensity for true compatibility. One can feel that it was meant to be, and still be trapped in an unconscious pattern that repeats with different faces. Only by recognizing and integrating the shadow can we distinguish a truly constructive encounter from a repetition of old wounds. Thus, understanding the role of the shadow and projections in meaningful encounters is essential for correctly interpreting the signs. They may indeed indicate a special connection, but that connection gains real value when it ceases to be merely a reflection of hidden parts and becomes a space for mutual awareness. At that point, the bond is no longer driven only by fate, but is sustained by inner work, transforming the relationship into a true catalyst for personal evolution. Individuation, a central concept in Carl Jung's work, is the process of becoming the person one is meant to be, integrating conscious and unconscious aspects of the personality. Far from being a linear or quick path, it is a profound journey of self-knowledge that requires facing fears, overcoming limiting patterns, and integrating parts of the self that were once neglected. In meaningful encounters, those seemingly filled with signs and synchronicities, individuation finds fertile ground as the relationship acts as a catalyst that accelerates this maturation. When two people meet in a striking way, there is often the impression that the bond is natural and that everything will flow effortlessly. However, if the goal is a solid, lasting connection, the path requires more than initial passion. Each individual must take responsibility for their own growth without placing on the other the expectation of completeness. This attitude prevents the relationship from becoming emotional dependency, which, according to Jung, blocks progress in the individuation process. The deepening of the connection begins with the awareness that the other is not there merely to offer comfort, but also to provoke challenges that stimulate growth. Often these challenges come in the form of differences in opinion, moments of distance, or conflicts that seem to threaten harmony. Instead of interpreting such situations as signs of failure, they can be seen as opportunities to strengthen the relationship's internal structure. It is in the conscious facing of these moments that true intimacy is built, based on mutual understanding and respect for each other's individuality. Individuation also requires maintaining one's identity within the relationship. In intense encounters, there is the risk of fusion, where personal boundaries dissolve and wills merge. While this fusion may seem romantic at first, it prevents each person from fully developing their potential. A healthy connection preserves the space for each to continue exploring their own interests, dreams, and paths, while sharing the journey with the other. Another important aspect is recognizing that the maturation of a connection is cyclical. There will be phases of intense closeness and others of apparent distance, and both are necessary. Just as in nature, where periods of expansion alternate with moments of retreat, relationships also need pauses for assimilation and reflection. Forcing a constant state of euphoria or proximity can create wear and prevent the organic growth of the bond. Jung saw deep relationships as living laboratories for personal transformation. When the universe seems to bring two people together, that encounter is often a call for each to confront their limitations and discover new inner resources. This process, though challenging, enriches not only the relationship, but also the individual's sense of life purpose. The deepening of the connection also requires constant and honest dialogue. Authentic communication allows misunderstandings to be resolved before they become insurmountable barriers. More than speaking, it is necessary to listen attentively and empathetically, seeking to understand what lies behind the words. This level of communication strengthens trust, an indispensable element for the relationship to withstand the inevitable tests of time. Ultimately, individuation within a relationship does not mean detachment or coldness, but the construction of a bond where two people walk side by side, self-aware and committed to their own evolution. When this happens, The encounter no longer depends solely on external signs to stay alive, as it is sustained by the daily choice to nurture the connection and grow together. Thus, if the universe's signs serve to unite paths, it is the conscious work of individuation that keeps them intertwined in a healthy, lasting way. It is in this balance between destiny and personal responsibility that the connection matures, becoming not only a memorable encounter, but a transformative experience that resonates throughout a lifetime. In Carl Jung's analytical psychology, anima and animus represent, respectively, the feminine dimension present in the unconscious of men and the masculine dimension present in the unconscious of women. They are archetypal images, shaped both by personal experiences and the collective unconscious, that profoundly influence how we relate. In meaningful encounters, especially those marked by signs and synchronicities, anima and animus often project onto the other, creating an intense sense of completeness, as if we had finally found the missing half. This feeling, though powerful, can be illusory if not understood consciously. When we project anima or animus onto someone, we are actually recognizing outside of ourselves internal aspects that need integration. The initial fascination we feel for the other often arises from this projection. A man may be enchanted by a woman who expresses sensitivity, intuition, or creativity he himself has not developed. A woman may be drawn to a man who displays firmness, courage, or rationality she has not yet integrated. The danger lies in believing that the other is the exclusive source of this completeness. In such cases, the relationship risks becoming dependent on the constant presence of that person to maintain emotional balance. Jung warned that the true integration of anima and animus does not come from outside, but from the inner work of recognizing and cultivating these qualities oneself. Meeting someone who awakens these aspects serves as a trigger, but the process of ownership is individual. In relationships where this integration is consciously pursued, the sense of completeness becomes more stable and realistic. Instead of living in expectation that the other will fill internal gaps, each person commits to developing their own polarities. This strengthens the connection, as there is no longer an implicit demand for the partner to be everything, creating space for mutual growth. The balanced presence of anima and animus also enhances communication and empathy. A man who recognizes and integrates his feminine dimension tends to be more sensitive to the other's emotional needs. A woman who incorporates her masculine aspect tends to act with greater assertiveness and clarity. This inner harmony is reflected in the relationship, creating a field of support and understanding that reduces conflict and facilitates the resolution of differences. The sense of completeness, therefore, is not just a romantic or emotional state. It reflects deep psychic balance. When two people meet, and both are engaged in this integration process, the relationship can reach a level of intimacy that goes beyond physical attraction or intellectual affinity. A partnership emerges in which each can recognize in the other not only what delights them, but also what challenges them, and still remain present and committed. It is worth noting that the projection of anima and animus is not necessarily negative. In fact, it can be one of the most effective paths to self-discovery. The key is to notice when this projection is happening and use it as a tool for development, rather than as a justification for dependency or excessive idealization. The encounter the universe provides in this sense is an opportunity to expand one's identity and integrate dimensions that were once dormant. When integration occurs, the sense of completeness no longer depends on the other to exist. The relationship then becomes a space for sharing between two whole beings, able to walk together without erasing their individuality. The bond is no longer sustained by neediness, but by the conscious choice to remain and build something together. Thus, anima and animus reveal that true completeness is not something found only in another person's gaze or touch, but in the ability to recognize within oneself all the polarities life offers. The universe may indeed bring two people together as a call to this process, but it is awareness and inner work that transform the encounter into a lasting and truly transformative bond. Encounters filled with signs and synchronicities awaken the feeling that something greater is at work, guiding two paths toward a shared point. Yet, As Carl Jung's analytical psychology reveals, these moments are not just predestined romantic stories. They are profound invitations to self-knowledge, to shadow integration, to balance between anima and animus, and to progress in the individuation process. When the universe places someone in our lives, it offers more than companionship. It offers us a mirror. In that reflection, we can see both what we love and what we avoid within ourselves. The true value of such an encounter lies in the ability to remain present and aware, using the relationship as fertile ground for mutual growth. Recognizing the signs is only the first step. What keeps the connection alive is the daily choice to nurture the bond with awareness, respect, and openness to transformation. By aligning destiny and personal responsibility, we create not only a remarkable relationship, but a life experience that resonates far beyond the moment of the encounter. Subscribe to the channel and continue this journey by watching the video on the screen now. Your transformation begins here.